Marco Rubio would be the first to tell you he is not a stock market soothsayer, but he did have a lot to say about the reason why these markets are so volatile. China. Take a look.
What's happening is that obviously China's direct impact on the American economy is not as big as some people might think, but China has a huge impact on developing economies that we do have relations with, because China's their number one export market, and China relies on them for raw materials and so forth. China's in a lot of trouble. I mean, their government has badly mismanaged their economy. They haven't been transparent. I think this is going to be an ongoing cycle for months, perhaps years to come. And we need to be, the best way to protect America from turbulence in the global economy is to have a strong economy where our tax code doesn't continue to encourage companies to leave us, where regulations are not making us uncompetitive. The best way to make America insulated from these things is to strengthen our economy, not undermine it the way Barack Obama has done over the last 7 years.
You know, in the past, Senator, our country has benefited from all the turbulence abroad because we presumably had less turbulence, or I think one market analyst said we're the tallest midget in the room. That doesn't mean we're on fire, but by comparison, better. Now folks are saying, given the first few trading days of the year and how volatile it's been, this is the year all that ends. Do you fear that?
Well, what's happening is the economy today is increasingly globalized, which means events halfway around the world have an impact here at home immediately. Now, most Americans aren't engaged in the stock market directly, but it does have an impact on the general mood of the country. And eventually, if you're an employee or an employer or a supplier to one of these companies, you're impacted by it. Not to mention retirees, people that are invested in the market through their pension plan or what have you. Look, America is still the greatest country in the world. Our problem is we're a great country in decline because of Barack Obama. He has abandoned the principles of free enterprise that made us the most prosperous nation in the world. I'm running for president because when I'm president, we are going to re-embrace free enterprise in this country.
You know, on that same issue of free enterprise, Senator, given the turbulence we've seen in the markets and everything else, Donald Trump has said, well, I'm your guy. I'm the guy experienced at this. I'm Mr. Business Fix-It. I'm Mr. Capitalism. I've had great success, more than all those other guys put together. I'm paraphrasing, but you get the gist when it's saying that this is a world tailor-made for his cure. What do you say?
Well, being president of the United States is not the same as being a real estate developer. First of all, the president doesn't run the economy. The private sector does. The job of a president is to support policies that allow the private sector to succeed. That's why we need serious tax reform, real regulatory reform, an energy policy that allows us to fully utilize all of our energy resources. We need more vocational training so people have the skills they need for the better paying jobs of the 21st century. We have to repeal and replace Obamacare. And I think it's important for people running for president to clearly detail not just what they're going to do. Don't just say we're going to make America great or we're going to create all these jobs. How are you going to do it? What are the specific policies you're going to pursue to put that in place? That's what we're going to continue to spend our time on, because this is too important an election to get wrong. We've got to elect someone that knows exactly what to do starting day one.
You know, adding to this volatility, Senator, certainly has to be North Korea. We're just learning today that Nancy Pelosi says there's very strong bipartisan support in Congress for legislation pushing still more sanctions against North Korea. You've advocated something even further, putting North Korea on essentially a list of state sponsors of terror. But either way, what would that do? Because no matter what we do in Republican or Democratic administrations, these guys just do what they want to do and build bigger and bigger bombs.
Well, first, we have to do everything we can to ensure that they have less money to spend on these sorts of programs. So that's why state sponsor of terror, they should be returned to that list. They were once on that list. They were removed from that list as a concession. They need to be put back on. We also need to go after the assets of their leadership. You know, their leaders in North Korea have significant assets abroad. We should be going after that. Number three, we need to rebuild our military on our Naval Pacific Fleet, which is being dramatically reduced in a dangerous way. We're going to have the oldest Navy in 100 years now if we continue with these defense cuts. We need to reverse them. And number four, we must invest as part of number three. Number four, we must invest in missile defense. They possess ICBMs, intercontinental missiles, perhaps already capable of hitting the west coast of the United States. We need to have a comprehensive missile defense shield for the continental U.S. in both the west coast and the east coast. This is something that the next president must make a priority, and I will. All
right, well, it's certainly been a rogue's delight of late in those challenging our leadership. You blame that on President Obama. More specifically,
100%.
We see with China, they're now landing passenger planes on these islands. They've yes. changed it and made their own. I'm wondering what you as president would do about that type of behavior on the part of nations that seem to just seize what are considered neutral waters and just take them over, whether it's Russia invading Crimea, now, of course, looking at the rest of the Ukraine. What would you do to stall that?
Well, first, Neil, those are not neutral waters. Those are actually the territorial waters of other countries, and they're being impeded upon by China, and that needs to be challenged. What they're hoping is that we'll just accept it, the way the world has accepted that Crimea now belongs to Russia. If they can just start using these islands, everyone will say, well, what can we do about it? And that's why it's so important to rebuild the Navy in general.
But
and
what would a President Rubio do? I mean, you're right, sir. That
well, I would sail right through those waters.
You would what?
I would sail right through those waters. I would put the U.S. Navy and repeatedly sail right through those waters and repeatedly challenge both the air rights that they're claiming and the sea lanes that they're claiming. I would, as part of rebuilding our military alliance in the region, rebuild our capacity to work with the Japanese. The Japanese have quite an impressive and capable Navy. The South Koreans as well. The Philippines needs an upgrade in their ability to protect their territorial waters. I think we need to reinvigorate our Pacific military alliance, and that begins with the United States investing the resources necessary to rebuild our Navy.
Would that include,
and that includes replacing the Ohio-class submarine?
I'm sorry, Senator. Would that include militarily intervening, then, not just beefing up a presence, but if China was trying to land a military or passenger jet, as it has done over the past couple of days on one of these disputed islands, if it did so, again, under a President Rubio, would you see that as an act of war?
Well, for example, if they were to invade Taiwan or they were to go after aggressively Japan, we have agreements, defense agreements with these countries, and we would come to their assistance as required in those agreements. We are going to live up to. Okay, well, in this case, what you need to continue to do is challenge their claims to these. These are reclaimed islands. In essence, they have built artificial islands in the middle of this island chain, and they do it because once they can claim an island, they can claim the territorial waters around it. We should not accept that. They can reclaim these islands. We should reject their sovereignty over these areas, and we should continue to fly our airplanes over it and sail our ships through it. And then they're the ones who are going to have to answer the question of what to do about it. But what we should not allow is for China to get away with what they're trying to do. And that is, they are trying to turn to the world and say, look, it's already a done deal. We control this area. You might as well accept it. That's what Russia has done with Vladimir Putin in Crimea. Everyone now accepts that Crimea is owned by Russia and that there's no way to challenge that. We will never accept that in the Asia-Pacific region when I'm president. But we have to have a Navy with the capability, not just technological, but enough ships and airplanes to continue to challenge their claims and to live up to our defense agreements in the region.